I got back out here and I was with ALRB, and at the time I was having to be a lawyer with ALRB, actually a hearing officer. And as soon as I got that charge off, I applied for to do field investigations, which was in effect a demotion, but it was a promotion to me because I got out of Sacramento, and from then for about 7 years I followed the season, and from one strike to the next. Row crop strike is 77, 78, 80, 81. Citrus strike 81, 82, 83. There's a strike, I don't remember what it was. I think it was tomatoes in San Diego.
So I was born around the citrus strike?
Yeah, you was born when I was figuring out. You were born when they had me, UFW had me figuring out who the crap was the employer, because they'd have these independent trees. And so I studied, out on my wall, I studied every single citrus tree and who owned it, thousands of acres, and gave the UFW the proposal, which they accepted. They gave. And that's when I got charged with racketeering. They seemed to think that as a state agent I was conspiring with UFW to violate the civil rights of Bruce Church Incorporated. And that's also where I met your mom. She was in the Imperial strike. She got all attracted to me, and it really confused her. I was this wrong color. I was the wrong color and wrong religion. I wasn't Catholic. That's when I had promised it was okay to raise you Catholic. The thing she made me do after she went through this whole thing of asking God whether she could date a white guy. She had to ask him 4 or 5 times too. Like she'd come up from La Paz to Salinas where I was stationed, and she'd say, I haven't got an answer. I prayed and this or that. And we would go to all these different Catholic, you don't know this, we'd go to all these different Catholic churches. The Catholic Church is nothing but this big, gigantic cathedral with a really neat place to pray down front. And we'd go down there, and at the time, I really was relating more to religion as a social focus of social. But your mom would go down there and pray like a white guy, and she was going to get, she was clearly going to get the word from God before she told Alfredo or any of her brothers. So I kept holding back, and she'd come in, leave, come in, leave. So anyway, me and your mother met. We didn't work strikes for the rest of the time of the LRB till about 80, I don't even remember when it was, 84, 85. And came up here. We joined an organization sometime in those strikes. I don't remember exactly when. We came up here to kind of develop a workers' movement up here, and we formed the Sonoma County Industrial Union with a cadre of workers with us, cadre of travelers with us. And so then we had 2 or 3 more years of strikes. It all kind of dissolved, and we're way ahead of our time. That's when we developed the theory, or I did actually develop the theory of how you organize with wage and hour law, which I then sent free to all the law firms. And Rosenfeld, with one of the big Van Borg law firms, stole it and sent it around. And me and Alicia were going around talking to law firms about how to do it, use wage and hour law, violations of wage and hour law as a form of organizing poor workers, poor section of workers. And we were arguing it. They were the only ones that were viable to be organized. That then wasn't just picked up from us, but that's basically the Justice for Janitors model. But that model became the statewide model for SEIU and all of the unions that were working lower paid workers. It was a model that came from me and your mom.
Is that why there's so many lawyers in unions?
No, there's lawyers in unions because people went to law school to enhance the struggle, and what they found out was that it's a rear guard.
Yeah.
It's an important rear guard function.
What's rear? How explain rear guard?
Rear guard is when you're not actually
On the front lines.
you're not the vanguard of the movement. You're protecting the movement gains.
Yeah.
It's important. But
Yeah.
And it can be done in a way that is vanguard. It can. But for the most part, it's not. So then what I did then was when me and your mom split up, one of us had to stay here with the union, and she did. And I went to work. I thought, well, I'll just go to work for a union that's got, that's one thing, I don't want all this in this tape, but one thing you might not remember is that when we split up, you never spent one day more with anybody than you spent with me.
I know.
And we remember sleeping in the Rabbit.
Hell yeah, in Guerneville.
Me
Girl,
telling
bro.
you we were on this adventure.
I remember the first.
You
Yeah, I
remember
remember.
sleeping in the Union?
Yeah, yeah. And I would
Yeah.
write up the
Playing,
those,
playing
write up the
football,
jokes.
like I never, I could just pass in a football.
I'd be writing up the jokes,
Do you
those jokes
remember
on a
me?
typewriter.
Yeah, do you remember me passing a football to you in the
Yeah.
outside in the parking lot? Because
Yeah.
it was like this cement parking lot. And we were anyway. Then I
Playing
went
in
to
the
work.
bush.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that one thing we did there was we did change the Central Labor Council to a more leftward Central Labor Council, because our idea was not to form an independent dual union. Our idea was to funnel Mexican workers into the straight unions in order to move the straight unions leftward. But the regular unions didn't want the Mexican workers because they were, quote, high maintenance workers, and so we had already organized them. The story about that was we were sitting around in a circle talking about, we were doing wage and hour cases for them and bringing them together in the Labor Law Enforcement Center and funnel them into unions. And so we started talking about unions with the workers that were coming around us. And one lady Sarah asked, how do you form a union? And I think it was me or your mom, I don't remember, said, you make a motion. This woman stood up and started moving around. And we asked her what she was doing. She said, I'm making a motion. And I said, motion for what? And she said, to form a union. And I said, right then, we just got, the direction had just changed. And we spent the next 3.5 years organizing that union. And we inflamed the labor movement around here.
Yeah.
And the Central Labor Council was changed. It really was. And it's just now moving back to where it was. So it was a substantial change.
Any last things? My phone's gonna die.
And then, what?
My phone's gonna die soon.
Oh, and then what happened, I decided to go to work for a straight union, and so I went straight. I transferred to Sacramento, and I worked for that union for 6 months.